Hi, this is Sarah Middleton, and this is my poster presentation called Teaching with Wayne Booth's Rhetorology. So to begin, I have here like a very pared down version of my introduction or maybe even abstract to give a little background information and provide the purpose of my poster. I'm not going to read it all, but it pretty much says I decided to do a deep dive into Wayne Booth and his rhetorology and focus on how this concept can be brought into the classroom. So now going to go to the top of my poster. So here I have the word rhetorology in bold. When I was designing my poster, I wanted a kind of hierarchy system to show how everything flowed and connected. So I put the definition of rhetorology that I used in my essay to ground the rest of the information on here. The quote says, "Nothing we ever work at is more important than the drive not just to maintain peace with rivals, but to understand them, to learn to think with them while assisting them to think with us in return." So, this definition is what I use to understand three of Booth's major works and what I tried to connect each of them back to. Moving on to those works, I focused on three. So, the rhetoric of rhetoric, the rhetoric of fiction, and the rhetoric of assent. For each of these, I tried to pinpoint one main principle that connected back to Booth's rhetorology. For the rhetoric of rhetoric, this was his ideas on listening rhetoric, which can be described as a rhetorical stance based in ethics, connection, and understanding. For the rhetoric of fiction, the connection was author or an audience relationship, which he described as the writer as a friend and reading as conversation. Finally, in the final work, the connection was his ideas of the rhetoric of assent, about which he said the purpose of persuasion must be to engage in mutual inquiry or exploration. After explaining these connections back to Booth's rhetorology, I then introduced four different methods of bringing these concepts into the classroom. On my poster, I also tried to visually connect them to which of the concepts they drew from to show how everything is classified. For the first, Booth himself talked about the importance of meaningful feedback. He said, if you can demonstrate in what you've said that the student has really been heard, then the student has some reason for responding. The second method is called narrative imagination, which is the ability to think what it might be like to be in the shoes of a person different from oneself, to be an intelligent reader of that person's story. The third method is from Peter Elbow and his believing game, where the focus of a classroom discussion is not just listening to views, not just trying to restate them without bias, but actually trying to believe them. The last method, which was the most interesting one to me, was classroom correspondence, where students write letters to varied audiences, a literary character from the unit, an author, a historical figure, anybody who's relevant to the unit at the time. And then the students would make copies of those letters for their peers to read and respond to. This process has many benefits for getting students to communicate. Students become accustomed to respectively but actively listening to their peers, reading their work, and responding appropriately. Letter writing also has a great impact in terms of building classroom community, stimulating discussion, and providing an opening for shy students to participate. By providing letter writing in conjunction with classroom discussions, those students who would not get a chance to participate can fully be heard. The benefits that students get from practicing Booth's rhetorology set them up to become deep thinkers who have the tools necessary to listen and communicate effectively and empathetically. Booth's ideas on rhetorology, combined with his philosophy of teaching, demonstrate his concern with allowing students a space for conversation where they direct the discussion to find common ground. The teacher's purpose, then, is to create this space of respect and trust, where safety is paramount to the ability for students to listen and be heard. If this space is achieved, then students will develop the skills necessary to leave the classroom as open-minded individuals who not only understand how their own experiences shaped their thinking, but also how to listen to others and learn how their experiences influence their thinking as well. This awareness serves to foster a generation capable of meaningful conversation, active listening, and genuine agreement rather than one accustomed to universal doubt.